Ready to light that fire by doing the things that make you come alive? Welcome to Health Raisers, a podcast for wise women. I'm your host, Dr. Nadine. I left a soul-crushing medical career full of bad news and evolved into a joyful health integration coach, helping hundreds of women find their healthy. You're more than your dress size. Stop putting up with toxic relationships, swallowing your true emotions, and sacrificing your mental health. Stop using your body as a battlefield. You're always giving. You deserve to put yourself first, not just for your sake, but for those you love. Wise women, let's make ourselves a priority right now. It's time to raise some health together. If you're ready to take the first step, visit npkhealthintegration.com and take the free questionnaire to assess where you are in your health journey right now. And if you're ready to take a bolder step into possibility with your health journey, email me at npk@npkhealthintegration.com to learn more about classes and coaching. Today, my guest is Dallas Fuentes, and I am so happy that Dallas is with us. She's a gerontologist, a transition, transformation, and life design coach, and a teacher of the Pilates method of body conditioning to adults over 60. So my people, welcome, Dallas. How are you?
I'm great to be here.
I am honored. And I cannot wait to get started. So, you and I have had the ability to connect via podcasting, and I have much respect for the work that you do and your passion and dedication to keeping us women healthy beyond what we hear and see about our health when we're younger. And I love the fact that we're aligned in terms of evolving and thinking about what's next and how can we reshape the idea of being healthy. So my first question for you is, when I say healthy woman, what does that mean to you? What does that look like?
It looks like self-love and not feeling guilty of putting self first. It means paying attention to what you authentically need and not what's prescribed or what you think you should need. So self-health is really being in touch with who you are and defining what's important to you in terms of lifestyle, how you want to spend your time, identifying what feeds you. And that could be totally different from what your neighbor does, your sister does, and really just keying in on not feeling the need to follow the herd when designing your health track, your health life, your health plan.
How did you come to this definition? Because it's certainly not the normal narrative.
I'm a contrarian by nature. So, when if you see the herd here, I'm going in the opposite direction.
Okay.
So it's just my nature not to follow the path, definitely not one for groupthink.
How do you think the narrative, the herd-like narrative that we are being fed in the diet and exercise industry is helping or harming us as a collective of women?
Well, I think the shift now is becoming a personalized health. They're realizing that there is not one size fit all in anything, but certainly not in healthcare and what people need. So it's taking a minute, but the shift is happening. You're seeing it now even in boutique style practice. The medical community is realizing, this is broken and we really need to just paradigm shift and get this right. So it's happening and we have to demand it.
What has led you to advocate for the later stages in life or aging with grace, with health, rethinking about reframing the way we look at aging?
Well, my best friend was like in her 80s when I was in my 40s.
Mm.
And then I had a whole crew of elder babes that I knew from church.
Mm-hmm.
And, they were old Harlem. I mean, they would sit back and say when Harlem was vogue. I mean, I don't have to flip through a magazine. These ladies could sit down and tell me some stories. And they had so much swag and grace, and I loved them and I admired them and hoped that, that I would age as well as they did. And then when I started teaching Pilates, I ended up teaching a group of senior women for 5 years. And then at that point, I said, if I had launched a pilot study and really, came up with some hypotheses that I could just apply to see how effective Pilates was, I would have had something that I could really state was evidence-based. But I thought about that after the fact. But so I sort of just gravitated to teaching older people and was really impressed with the vitality and the grit and the desire to stay strong. And at that point, I said, you know what, I'm just going to create a little niche for whatever I do for this community. And then I decided to go back and get my master's in gerontology because it just made sense since I was, had decided that this would be my niche. And that's how that all started. And I was in my 40s then, and I'm now 63. So I'm in that stage where, this thing about the health and well-being is critical because, as you know, I'm interested in the 100-year life. Mm-hmm. And, not 100-year-old where you're not active, you're not engaged. That's not the way we're doing. The boomers are not going out like that. So at this juncture, health is key. Whatever worked, you stick with. Whatever did not work, you map out a plan for something that will. So this is exciting times for health and wellness. For sure.
I love everything you just said. So much of it resonated with me. I, like you, have had very positive experiences early on in my life with my elders. It's cultural. It's a lot of who I hung out with, mother's friends, my maternal grandmother who lived with us and helped bring us up before her, my great grandmother. So I've always had this affinity and deep respect for our elders, the women and the wisdom and the stories that they share and how they take care of themselves and how they take care of family and community. And it sounds like in your story, again, finding so much commonality. I would like to ask you next, because I think it's pretty seamless to hear about healthy community from you. You've started to kind of talk about it a little bit with hanging out in church and in other spaces with these elders who inspired you. So what has that meant to you to be a healthy woman within a larger community? And how do they balance each other out?
Yeah, well, one has to, since I am a Pilates instructor, I'm in health and wellness, I have to definitely practice what I preach. Mm-hmm. So, I have to keep it together, just to be authentic. And it's nice to be able to model for people, not just talk it, but live it and just be a real live example of what healthy aging looks like. Most people say that I don't look like I'm 63. And that just really began, but I began working out in my 20s. So it's been a long time of being physically active and, trying to eat well. And in eating well, that's, again, personal. Everyone doesn't have to be a vegetarian or eat plant-based, which is what I do. You can choose good food, the best cuts of meat. If you eat meat, the best cuts that you could afford. Mm-hmm. You can get that free range chicken if you eat chicken, and you could really watch the portions and really back off the sugar because that is a problem. So, it's about being an example of wellness and wholeness, and not just physically well, but psychologically well.
And now here's an ad from our sponsor. In the mood for coffee, tea, yummy pastries, or cool swag? My friends at Infused have got you covered. Infused Coffee Roasters is a cozy neighborhood coffee joint in Sawyer and St. Joseph, Michigan. Infused stands for a healthy community. They craft irresistible seasonal drinks, sourcing local artisans' products. The flavors shine from quality ingredients, and their beans are roasted on site They do not hide behind tons of sugar. Every time I go, I'm greeted by my name with a smile. Bad service is just non-existent. It feels like stepping into a friend's living room. They keep it personal. Old school, eclectic coffee mugs on the wall, fun merch, including stickers designed by artists, t-shirts, and sweatshirts. It's the perfect place to get to know your neighbors and chat with tourists. You will always find people deep in conversation. Special events keep it fresh. Community, health, the heart of Sawyer. That's Infused. I hope to meet you there. So take me on a little journey of yours, of what your relationship with health and wellness have been like over time. So you mentioned you started becoming very physically active in your 20s and you're still physically active. So how has your relationship shifted and modified and evolved with time?
Well, at one point, I had gained 60 pounds. I was weighing 182 pounds. My frame, I'm petite. So that's a lot of weight for someone with a small frame. I had gotten married and each year, I was getting wider and wider and wider. And I live in New York City in an apartment building in a walk up, meaning no elevator. And, it got to be like I was hauling a ton of bricks because I live on the top floor. And I was like, something's got to give. But what was the real sinker is that I had went to for a medical checkup, annual screening. And then I got on the scale and then the nurse said, "You weigh 182 pounds." And it was like she had a megaphone and everybody in the office heard that. And that was such a wake up call. So I said, okay. And then I heard my best friend and my mom talking about how much weight I gained. They didn't know. I mean, I was turning a corner and they were sitting in the kitchen. They were saying, "Yes, Dallas has really gotten so." So that really was like, I didn't say, they did not know that I heard them, but I needed to hear that. And then that was it. Something clicked. And I remember it was April. I had gotten a tax refund and I said, "What am I going to do with this money?" And the thought came, join a gym. And the minute I did that, that was it. All I could do was work on the treadmill because I was very heavy and you did the labored breathing and the joints and all that. But once I started moving, it was like magic. People didn't even recognize me because it just fell away because I wasn't a heavy person to begin with, but being sedentary in the marriage and just so content in eating. But once I began to move, it just shed. And that was in my 20s, late 20s, early 30s. And then that was it. I mean, it never came back. I never went back. So and I was always healthy. You can be overweight and not have any health problems other than it not being great for your structure and your respiratory. Because I didn't smoke, I didn't drink, I didn't do any of that. I just ate too much. And I was sedentary. But once I began to move, and movement, I mean, you don't have to go to a gym. Just move, just walk, ride a bicycle, any of that.
What else did you notice besides the obvious physical ramifications of movement? How else were you finding benefits after you lost that weight?
Well, I mean, I always had an upbeat personality and an optimistic outlook. So there was never any shaming or self-hate about that. It was just, I have always been proactive with my life. So I said, just get in gear, do it. And then that was it. So, and then it was inspiring for others to see that. See, people are always watching you. They don't say anything, but people watch how you run your life. And then just based on that and how it wasn't a yo-yo thing where, 10 pounds off 20, once it was gone and it never came back. But it launched me into a fitness career.
Okay. So it helped take you down that path. So you said that when you were doing that, when you were eating, you were sedentary, you were in marriage, and you were feeling like, what I'm inferring is that it was rewarding for the time when you were engaging in loving to eat. So when that goes away, what do you replace it with? How else did you find joy and connection in your marriage?
Just joy in my projects. I think, I just said, well, you know what, I will, once I started going to the gym and taking the classes or really just working out, I'm really, even though I teach classes, I train alone. I like to train alone. And I was in there with the men, pumping the iron. So, and I recall that the people in the gym were so amazed at the transformation that they asked me if I wanted to teach class, if I wanted to work there. That's how dramatic that became. But then I was weight training for a while, and then I kind of wanted to do something different. So I found a DVD on Pilates, and I didn't know what that was. And I said, oh, sounds interesting. And then I just took it from there. And I've been working out ever since.
So it sounds like in the journey to weight loss, you found that passion, that spark, and the working out and the movement and being in that environment helped you connect more to your purpose. And so you started to feel maybe more mentally and emotionally. And I know your baseline, you said, is already optimistic, but it boosted it even more. So that movement and doing what you were doing were reward enough. Am I getting that right?
It was just something new to do. A new challenge. Let's try this. I mean, every year, every theme, every decade, I'm a chameleon. Every decade I'm doing like the podcasting. I mean, last year that hadn't occurred to me to even try that. I like to learn. I'm a lifelong learner. I preach to my gerontology folks, and that's part. Life is you evolve. At least I evolve. And that's how I live. Again, you won't find me in the same groove 5 years from now. I mean, I'm always developing, exploring. So the weight loss led to another field of activity, another interest. It was creative, a creative endeavor.
I love how that sounds so key to you, how important that is to you, that you embrace change and newness in the spirit of being a lifelong learner. What has surprised you along your health journey?
Well, the variety that I need variety because I've done Pilates, I've done pole dancing. Recently, I started rollerblading. So
fantastic.
I like to mix it up. But strength is strength. And you can challenge that by trying different things. I mean, I did a bit of running, but it was too painful on my shins. I was getting shin splints too much. So I said, this is not my activity. But I was running at 6.2 miles around Central Park on a regular. So I could do it, but you have to know what activity is right for you. I mean, I don't want to be a wounded warrior, doing a 6.2 like 3 times a week, and then my shins are killing me. So that didn't make sense.
That's a really important point you bring up. It's like coming back to that idea of there's no one size fits all, which I completely agree with. And it's why I do the work that I do, and with my health coaching and with the yoga, is not forcing the body, the mind, the individual into a prescribed regimen. Rather, you shape what works for you, and you stay curious. As time passes, things do shift. And so you continue to find new ways to move, new ways that work for you, and not force yourself. Like, I don't like the no pain, no gain. I think that's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. I wish we could strike it from our zeitgeist, but I do believe it's more about you should challenge yourself. Absolutely. No strain, no gain. But be curious about how that is going to change and shift as your body changes and shifts, as your circumstances, as your life changes and shifts. Stay open, stay curious, to find new ways to remain a wholly healthy woman. Does that make sense?
Totally. And that should be the approach. Mix it up. What you did in your 20s is old hat by 40s. And then, what you did in your 40s may not serve your 60s. I mean, there's other things, at 60s, it should be more structurally, let's get the structure together. Am I doing the resistance training? Am I working on posture? How's my breath work going?
So it comes back to the top of the hour when you mentioned self-love. Self-love, self-study, being curious about who you are in this moment and what you need. So Dallas, I think that really brings us into this question I've been dying to ask you, which is, based on the wonderful human you are, what is a question you have for the women in the audience in our virtual living room today about their health?
What will you design for the next stage of your life fitness? What will you design that you, based on all the years you've been training, perhaps there's a modality you want to try. Perhaps you even want to teach and lead.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Dallas. It meant a lot.
Glad to be here, and thank you for the invitation.
Wise women, stop using your body as a battlefield. Move from last place to first place in your life. Let's raise health together. Take the first step and visit npkhealthintegration.com for a free health questionnaire. Ready for more? Email me at npk@npkhealthintegration.com to learn more about classes and coaching. And let's start a conversation. Thanks for listening and taking this time for yourself. See you next time.